When was the first time you were amazed by a video game's graphics? Donkey Kong Country, Super Nintendo. Rare put a lot of work into giving Donkey Kong depth and shading. Blew me away too. Wind Waker. I remember seeing N64 as a little kid and yeah, it was good for the time, but you could obviously tell that the future could get a lot better. Castle Town always looked like shit. Faces looked awful. But when Gamma Cube came out and we got Wind Waker, oh boy, total game changer. Wind Waker was such a gem of a game. It honestly still looks good even today. I remember all the outrage over the style of the graphics when it was released. But honestly, looking back, I'm really thankful Nintendo went with a more cartoony style. It's timeless in my opinion. Skyrim. It may not have been the best looking game of its time, but it was the first PS3 game I ever played on a HD TV. Before that, I'd been playing a PS2 with an old box TV my dad found at the tip shop, so it was a huge upgrade. Totally. I remember being blown away by it and just spending ages watching the clouds gently roll off the throat of the world and salmon jumping upstream. Then I discovered graphics mods and that only got better. It's a 9-year-old game that I still play more than most modern titles. When I saw Doom running on a 486 at a trade show, I was speechless with my mouth open for at least 10 seconds. It was so smooth. What do you think you wolves said back then to Doom Eternal? Doom Eternal is just way beyond what I ever expected from real-time graphics. When consoles in the mid to late 90s had enough clout to display video, you'd get pre-rendered cutscenes. Games now look much better than those cutscenes. Dragon's Lair. I played many arcade video games in the 80s, but this one was a laserdisc game. Came looking for this. Even though the game itself was pretty terrible, the graphics were unreal at the time. After that, it's probably the Sierra Quest games which actually had some good gameplay. That game cost me an awful lot of quarters. Final Fantasy X's cutscenes, specifically the opening and the scene in the beach town. Amazing and still hold up today, I think. Yes, the opening to FFX. I remember going, wow, they look real, and it completely blew my mind. I think another one would have to be the Kingdom Hearts opening. Around the same time. I hadn't played FF games before then. My only game experience was a bit of Pokemon Yellow, computer games, and some lesser known SNES and PS1 stuff. Not the first time I was amazed, but Final Fantasy VII blew my mind more than anything else. Oh yes, going from the SNES and Secret of Mana to the PS1 and FF7 was quite a leap. I so wish I could play that game again for the first time. It was a big leap. But I also remember being pretty much floored by FFXII's controllable cutscene weirdness. Things like running Squall around on the train roof, etc. Looking back on it now, it's pretty clunkily done. But that Sugar was great the first time I saw it. Not sure if I'd call it amazed, but Super Mario Bros. 3 definitely looked far better than anything else on Nintendo at that time. But I was definitely amazed by the Super Nintendo. I'm still amazed at how much character and color they packed in there, especially when you compare it to SMB1. SMB2 is a great looking game too. Destiny 1. The last mission, when you're in the Black Garden, you go through these series of tunnels that lead you out to this expanse where you turn right to gank more enemies. I just kinda stood there and looked at the art of the expanse for like a full minute the first time I played it through. Same thing when I did my second and third playthrough. King's Quest V. There was a cutscene where King Graham talks to Samantha, and I vividly remember being blown away by the color and movement. It was beauty and VGA glory. I didn't realize a computer could look like a cartoon instead of an Atari game, and I wanted a picture of it. I feel really old now. I loved King's Quest games. I miss Sierra so much. Circa 1991. Wing Commander on PC. Turned out that if you had enough RAM, the pilot's hands would move with your joystick inputs. That was a maze. Yeah. I remember seeing it at a Babbage's and being super intrigued. Babbage's. Haven't heard that name in ages. The first time I was legitimately amazing by any graphic was Oculus SVR 4K porn. It felt like the girl was in the room. And any time the camera got super close to the skin, my face felt the heat coming off their body. Like my brain was so tricked. It Pavlovian the heat sensation. Because that always happened prior. Why wouldn't it now? But, like, video game? Jak and Daxter was beautiful at the time. Before anyone says porn is not a game. It played with my emotions. I was the game. And I'm fucking fabulous. WCW Nitro. For the original PlayStation. Me and my friends all loved WCW vs. the World for the PlayStation. And then when THQ announced that new wrestling games were coming out for PlayStation and N64, we were so excited. One friend and I both had PlayStations, and another friend had N64. When my PlayStation friend and I saw a render of Hulk Hogan from WCW Nitro on the cover of one of the video game magazines, we talked so much Sugato, our N64 friend, about how much better Nitro looked than WCW vs. NWO World Tour for the N64. We were so glad that we had PlayStations until we played Nitro. It was the drizzling shits, and World Tour was amazing. PlayStation friend and I both bought N64s in short order. Original Tomb Raider, lol. 1996. Edit. Just the PS1 in general, I think. No. Long time PC gamer by 95, and Tomb Raider was a masterpiece of employing new technology. The camera controls the cutscenes using gamma play element, and the total open world's environment, where you could climb and shimmy on anything, were all innovative and breathtaking, even if the graphics look dated today. Far Cry. The first one. Not any of those crap knockoffs. The water and island scenes were pretty awesome. Came here to say this. There was one bit where you follow a path up a mountain and you turn a corner and have a gorgeous view over a whole valley. You best believe I sniped the sugar out of the enemies on the other side. Well, the first time, and I know this is going to sound silly today, but when the Xbox 360 came out, I just could not believe it. I totally thought, this is the pinnacle of graphics. Look how realistic these people look. It's funny to look back at that and remember how in awe I was. Grand Theft Auto 4 was awesome. Battlefield 3 was amazing for the time and still is great. Compared to Bad Company and Call of Duty, it looked so much more realistic and better. Not sure if amazed is the right word, but I remember playing Pokemon Omega Ruby on the 3DS and thought to myself, looks exactly like the original Pokemon Ruby for the GBA. I then compared them side to side and saw how much the graphics actually improved. I remember when the PS1 was really kicking off, the rendering in Legend of the Dragoon was crazy compared to so many other games I was used to seeing. Mine is Quantum of Solace for the 360. This was the first video game I played since GameCube because my parents were kind of anti-video games. I remember thinking it looked just like a movie. Wizard 101. It wasn't anything earth-shattering, but its slightly cartoony vibe and diversity of its worlds were breathtaking for me, especially taking in the warm perpetual sunsets of Firecut Alley, the twinkling stars and fjords of Grizzleheim, the lush jungles of Azteca. Lots of good stuff. Roblox game graphics are getting better and better. Some first-person games look so real. The only part that shows it's Roblox is the blocky hands. Everything else looks so real. My first instinct was to say Mario 64, but after thinking about it, the graphics weren't what blew me away. I mean, it looked like shit, and we knew it looked like shit. DKC was miles better graphically than Mario 64 or OOT. I was more just blown away by being able to move around in a 3D environment. So, I'd have to go with something more modern. Horizon Zero Dawn. Amazingly beautiful game. This question casts a wide net. We've got people that saw advancements in graphics back in the 80s, and some people we're blown away for the first time last Eek. The Witcher 3 sunsets and sunrises. They have some incredible vistas in general in that game. Beautiful world. Ugly inhabitants. Quite late, but when the PS3 released, I remember thinking it's like real life. I look back now, with the graphics we have today, and wonder how I even thought that, cause it looks pretty average nowadays. The pre-rendered 3D graphics in Donkey Kong Country were a pretty mind-blowing upgrade from Super Mario World in 1994. Oh, and the shininess of the security desk guy's helmet 5 minutes into Half-Life 1998. Close bracket. I remember back in 2008, when I was about 14, GTA 4 came out, and I went over to my cousin's house, and they happened to be playing it. I still remember how impressed I was with the graphics. But what I was more impressed by was all the details, like the traffic noises and pedestrians throwing their empty coffee cups and other litter on the ground. Made me feel like I was actually in New York City, even though I had never been. For me it was Ratchet and Clank: A Crack in Time. It was probably one of my first PS3 games, and I was playing on a new TV too. I thought it was amazing you could see the hair move on Ratchet. I'm not really into newer games, I usually play older games cause I find them more enjoyable, but the game that first amazed me by its graphics was Minecraft with shaders. First, it amazed me cause my computer somehow could handle it, and second, of how pretty it was. Playing ray traced shaders Minecraft on the Index. If you haven't used VR before, you simply can't imagine how amazing it is. When I bought a new PC and launched Subnautica, I can't describe how beautiful game became compared to my old crappy PC. I don't remember exactly. I think maybe because I play a bunch of PS1 and PS2 games at the same time. But I think the first time I'm truly amazed at and affected by computer graphics, where I just stop playing and just enjoy the view for a few minutes and let the view sink in, world being modern photorealistic games, specifically Horizon Zero Dawn. I remember the first time climbing on top of a hill and the view beyond is just breathtaking. If somehow I could transport into the HZD world on top of that hill, I would just sit there for hours, like how I do in real world when traveling to a place with a nice view. Assassin's Creed Black Flag, Origins and Odyssey. Just the detail in all the structure and artwork had me like, holy shit, this is awesome. Days Gone. I was running in a forest uphill, but ran out of stamina. Decided to look up, and I stood there for a minute memorized by the trees and sun rays. Even with the god rays gone from beta stages, I'm still finding new places to just take it all in. The first time I played Maximum Pain as a kid, I thought it looked very realistic. Metal Gear Solid 2. Obviously in comparison to today's Grayo Hicks it pales in comparison, but I still think it overall holds up. I can still play it today without any early graphics frustration. Sons of Liberty had amazing graphics. I've been playing since Sega Genesis in the 90s. I've been wowed plenty of times, but the most memorable one was BioShock on 360. I just could not believe how real the airplane and water looked at the very beginning of the game. I remember thinking that games couldn't possibly look any more real than that. Battle Arena Toshinden on PlayStation. For some reason I was totally out of the loop and didn't know a new system had come out after N64, and my friend busted it out and blew my mind. When I got a 2DS, I got a game that was a turn-based 2D shooter. For my birthday I got a new 2DS, and when I switched the data, the new DS amazed me on how smooth it looked. Later when I bought a Switch, Fudget DS, this so cool! Exclamation mark. Genshin Impact. I had played other anime games or games with similar graphics, but Genshin just stood out so much to me. Mech Warrior 2 on a 3DFX graphics card. At the time I thought it looked real. The only other time I felt just completely blown away by a game's graphics was with Ultima 9th Ascension. Please click subscribe if you enjoyed this video.